Hello everyone, and welcome to a new video. This time we'll be taking a look at Overseas Memories. So, this banner review, I should say, was supposed to come out yesterday. My sleep schedule decided to do a Huno reverse card on me, and what ended up happening is just me sleeping 15 hours and I woke up at 2 AM instead of like 3 PM. I was trying to just, sleep 3 hours to be able to record this, but Buddy decided, nah, I'm just dying now, fam. So, yeah. I'm sorry about this. As for the refined tier list update, it's going to come out tomorrow. I have everything ready for that. The only reason why it's not going to come out today is purely so I can space the videos, so I can at least give people some time to watch this one before the refined tier list update, because I don't want to overload people with videos. That's why I never upload 2 times in a day. It just doesn't feel right. But yeah, tomorrow will be the refined tier list update. Maybe if I do feel good enough about it, I might also do the GHB Tempest Trial tier list update the day afterward. That one I have nothing ready yet, so I'll have to work on it today and tomorrow. But we'll see. We'll see when we get to it. But yeah, let's move on. As per usual, I'll go from worst to best, and I'm starting with Dorothea. Now, people might be wondering, wait, Sylvain's not the worst? Sylvain actually has a few purpose, but I'll get to that once we get to that. Let's talk about Dorothea first. What is my issue with Dorothea? Well, really the main issue she has is just the fact that she's an offensive dagger as a dancer. It just doesn't work together. But let's talk about her set first. Hidden Thorns. Okay, so this is basically the gimmick of every weapon of the banner except Byleth, which is kind of funny because everyone in the banner have a way to boost their stat and then heal themselves after the fight is over. Byleth's kit basically makes her take damage every fight because of the push skill. Just a bit of an oddity, but yeah, figured I'd point that out. So, what does Hidden Thorn do? You basically get 5 in attack and res, and then you heal yourself by 7. The description is kind of inaccurate, or not exactly inaccurate, but not exactly precise, because the way it's worded, it sounds like the first fight in the entire match, in either player or enemy phase, you will get those stats, and then it just doesn't work ever again. Great writing, guys. Instead of saying it's a once per turn effect, once per turn and once per phase effect, this is what we get. So, let me explain how this is supposed to actually work. Your player phase, it works. And then the enemy phase of that very same turn, it works also. It works once per phase, period. So essentially, like, first player phase, it will work. First fight of the enemy first fight of the player phase, it will work. First fight of the enemy phase of that same turn, it will work. The turn after that, it resets, so it's again able to work. So you can actually constantly have this amount of sustain and stat from the weapon as a result. It's a pretty good weapon overall, even though people think it's garbage, because it's not really good in AR, which I will agree on that. It's a terrible weapon for AR, but it can be very good in other places than AR. The thing with this weapon, though, is that it boosts attack and res, which is a bit iffy. Most dagger units tend to have a really good res stat to begin with, or better res than defense, I should say. So it kind of feels pointless. The attack can be pretty good, however, because it's effectively giving you a 17 attack weapon, and a lot of dagger units have pretty awkward amounts of attack, so that can be kind of useful. Though I do think the one of the better one would be the magic one, the tome one, I should say. But even then, it's kind of iffy. I do feel like if it boosts attack and speed, it would be a lot better. Or hell, even attack and defense. Because casters, daggers, they tend to have a good rest stat but a bad def one. So a lot of unit would have been able to use attack def a lot more. Just kind of like how Carrot Cudgel is a really good weapon, but I wish it boosted attack and res because, look, sword units with high defense are very, very consistent. But those with high res and lower defense, I mean, I can think of Lloyd. I don't know any other. I really like. I'm Syri. That's another. Remember Syri, guys? I don't. Anyway, there's just not a whole lot of option, is there? So, attack and def would have been better here, and ironically enough, Carrot Cudgel would have been better with attack and res. But oh well. At the end of the day, it's still a pretty good weapon to have. It's just a shame it's lucked to a 5-star. Still, that's kind of what it is. As for attack cantrip, that's a yikes. Most of the time, a dancer will not want a dance skill or a cantrip skill. You know what dancers want? They want mobility. They want Wings of Mercy, the Flyer Formation, the Aerobatics. Skill like this that actually allow them to get where is needed to dance someone. So obviously, this is where you want to go, right? You want to have movement. This just gives you a stat debuff. The only unit that's actually able to use an effect like this well is Nils. Because his weapon gives it, not the B slot. His weapon is basically a Spectrum cantrip. So it's even more yikes when you look at this as a B skill. Like, dancers are mostly meant to be support units anyway, right? So, if you're going to make a support unit, need their B skill to be a support unit instead of their weapon, it's kind of just, why though? Daggers have access to Temari, and outside of daggers, you don't really have any options. You have Nils that has the weapon that comes with it, that's basically a Spectral Cantrip, which makes this skill even more yikes, because you're basically having Spectral Cantrip, which is -4 across the board. It works also as a massive threaten range at the start of every turn. And then you have this, but it doesn't work at the start of the turn. It only does -7 in one stat instead of 4 across the board. It's just mediocre at best. There's just no way around it. This is not a good B skill. Period. What can I say? Just stick to Wings of Mercy again. But yeah, as far as Dorothea is concerned, she should be more used as an offensive dagger more so than a dancer. Because as far as dancers are concerned, there are just better choices, or there is a better choice. Let's move to comparison, so I can truly show you what I mean. So, as far as dancers are concerned, I don't think this is a controversial statement to say that Tethys is almost a must-build for most players, because if you look at that stat line, you already can tell, this is bulky as hell. You had Fortress Def Res, that's even bulkier at that point. You end up with a unit that's just extremely bulky, debuffs both stats by 5, very easily, better than Dorothea can, because Dorothea has 4 less res, which is kind of massive for Temari, which requires you to have 3 more res than your enemy. And overall, she doesn't have any points wasted in attack, which is the thing with Dorothea. That's what her main problem is. Tethys actually has a def stat, which is higher than most dagger units up there, so that also helps her quite a bit. And Tethys is a 3 to 4 star. Dorothea is a 5-star exclusive. If you think you're going to make this your main dancer, please reconsider. Unless you like the character, in which case all I'll say is, get one, and stop there. There's no purpose in going beyond the first copy. In my opinion, that's just kind of pointless. Especially since, if you want to use it in a mode like Arena, any of the Colosseum modes except Resonant Battle, I believe, since that doesn't require, like, Arena scoring. Whoops, sorry. Then you run into the problem of, you need to run colorless dual infantry. She scores as a 160 BST unit once merged, because, you know, that fixed the Bane. 160 means you're a whole merge behind of using colorless dual infantry. So Tethys would outscore her by a full merge, which is a lot if you don't use colorless dual infantry. If you use colorless dual infantry, you score the same as Tethys. Except Tethys has more res to be able to use a support weapon. Dorothea doesn't. So that's a bit awkward already. But, yeah. Also, you know, in general, it's just so much less expensive to work on Tethys. Tethys is a 4-star focus on the Desert Mercenary banner right now. It was changed, so basically if... Also, this is worth mentioning for people who want to know what to vote for the banners. The next one after this, as far as Forging Bonds are concerned, the next one has like 4 things, and I believe Air of Light is the best. You know why? Altena becomes a 4-star focus if that banner gets rerun. Any one of you all like Altena? That's probably something you should, you know, vote for. Just saying. That's what I would vote for personally. But yeah. So as a result, you know, that's another reason Tethys is a 4-star focus right now, whereas Dorothea is a 5-star. And Tethys does basically most things better. As far as a dancer is concerned, she just does it better. As far as an offensive unit is concerned, she just does not have a room in arena. If you have colorless dual infantry on her, your offense will not be good enough to deal with anything really dangerous. And it's going to be very easy for them to double you and therefore kill you. At least if you use a, you know, a score-centric build, which most people would. Which is just awkward. It just makes Dorothea a very awkward unit to work around. So, yeah. Personally, I would strongly recommend not building her. Or, you know, settling with 1 copy. As far as the offensive build is concerned, okay, so here's where it gets a bit more interesting. She has more attack than Soph, but requires an attack boon for it because she gets a super boon from it. So that's why she ends up with more attack. If you compare both of them at neutral, they end up with the same amount of attack. So, yeah. Soph is still better for AoEs, however, for one simple reason. It's just easier to get going. AoEs, you know, you don't get that much from having 1 more attack. However, Soph has 2 more HP, and if you're comparing their lowest stats, there's a 3-point difference. So Soph has like 5 more bulk overall against dragons. And physical units are far more common than mages themselves, so Dorothea's res is effectively kind of pointless. Outside of modes like AR, for example, but even then, like, why are you using her? Why aren't you using Tethys or Peony or something like that? There's no reason to use Dorothea. That's just kind of a fact. So, as a result, again, Tethys is just a better option. But if you're talking from an offensive standpoint that's outside of AR, because in AR this set is absolutely dreadful, AoEs with Soph works really well in the sense of, well, he has more even bulk, it's easier to set up, so it's easier to just get going. The hardest part about Special Spiral is getting to the point where you can actually use it. Like, for example, I have Bridal Nyla. Bridal Nyla, once she gets going, is disgustingly OP, but before she gets going, she is not exactly in the safest of positions. It's very easy for her to just get double tapped by two different units and die as a result. But once she gets going, she'll destroy both like they're nothing, and she'll just heal back for it. That's the same kind of logic here. So, yeah, I guess the other set that you could bring up is Broadly Fan. I actually did not show this set in the builds, but Broadly Fan Vantage, Dorothea does it better than Soph, kind of. It can be a bit dangerous to set up, like to get in vantage range without dying. But other than that, you know, it's pretty solid overall. It's just like I said, you know, Soph is a 3 to 4 star. Getting him to +10 is a lot cheaper. Dorothea is pretty expensive, and she barely does it better than Soph. But yeah, moving on to builds. Set on the left, let's talk about it. This is the only set that really makes her better than Soph, because not having even bulk makes impact skill so much better. You can just basically rapidly tie the def and res of the two stats because of the 10 points of bulk it gives in one of the two stats. Now, there is also 1 point against this set. Can you guess it? His name is Gangrel. Yeah. Despite the fact that Gangrel, alongside Larum, and alongside also Kronia, because of the first merge giving her 1 attack, all have 32 attack, Dorothea has less attack overall than Gangrel. Once the enemy is debuffed, which is something you can easily control, at the end of the day, Gangrel gets 4 across the board for it. His weapon has 14 base might to begin with, and on top of it all, he also gets attack as true damage based off of his res. It's very easy to get 40 to 50 res on Gangrel, which means 8 to 10 true damage. So that 32 attack suddenly feels more like 40. 40 to 42. But Dorothea has 41. Wow, ain't that similar? Except, again, the might of the weapon itself is 18 as a result. Hidden Thorn is 17. So even in attack, Dorothea is behind by only 1 point, but from a unit that's basically free. And also Gangrel has a bit more speed. The weapon provides him speed, so speed is a lot less shaky than Dorothea here, meaning you can run low attack def, so the damage just got even bigger of a gap. So what about def and res? I do think Gangrel actually beats her in both as well, because hello, I'm a dancer, I have 10 less BST. So yeah, overall, this set obviously can be done better by Gangrel. Still, the set is also fairly solid if you want to use it. You have 63 attack, 68 because of Hidden Thorns, 74 because of Sturdy Impact, 78 because of Joint Drive Attack, and 82 attack because of Sturdy Blow 2. As for the speed, you have 49 because of low attack speed, so 82, 49. That's pretty good offensively. What about defense? 39, 40 because Sturdy Impact, 43, 40 because Sturdy Blow, 43, 45 because Hidden Thorns, and obviously 46, 48 because of low attack speed. Yeah, it's pretty solid overall. It's just like I said, Gangrel can do this better. Though obviously you can use dance with this, so I guess you can make her a dancer as well. But it's just kind of awkward to have a unit that can dance go in the front to attack without any way to repo her back or anything of the sort. So that can make it awkward in certain situations. As for the set on the right, here's my gripes with it. She kinda requires to have Fortress Defense, right? You know what the problem with Fortress Defense is? Yeah, it takes your slot. For a dancer, your C, your S, and your B are the most important skills of your arsenal. Why is that? Well, very simple. B skill is basically is mobility. C and S are basically stat increase. So like tactics, drives, and so on and so forth are typically what you use for C skills, and S skills like attack and speed tactic together, which is something that Dorothea can't really do unless you want her defense to be kind of garbage as a result. It's definitely very iffy. I really don't recommend going all out on Dorothea. Just wait for her non-summer version, which probably will look better anyway. And yeah, That's just all I'll say here. So, let's move on to Sylvain now. So, Sylvain. Outside of having literally the best art of the banner, and I'm not even gay, I genuinely just think, like, his art style is just very well realized and very fitting of the character. Which, can't say I can really agree with, you know, the one that Rhea got, the one Dorothea got, and Ingrid is pretty okay, but still worse than Sylvain in my opinion. So, Sylvain. Sylvain is actually pretty solid to have, but not exactly as a one-off. This would cost feather, but really, nothing in his kit is really important except Rouse Attack Def. If you do want that on one of your unit, that's pretty good, but personally I do think Rouse with a speed buff is more important because speed buff are still fairly difficult to get. But that's just me. Anyway, let's move on to comparison so I can just kind of point out a few things. This is the only comparison I'll make because honestly, other than this, the closest comparison is Cecilia, and it's not even worth comparing. Cecilia is kind of just her own thing, and her defense is a lot less. But if you look at this here, they basically have the same bulk. As long as they only get hit once, they have the same bulk. Because Sylvain has 4 more HP, yeah? If you get only hit once, you can transfer that 4 HP into defense and res, and then you have 35-24. Oh, look at that, Python has the same. If you get hit more than once, well, obviously, Python has more bulk. However, the thing that makes Sylvain better is the fact that he's a caster. Hitting res is a lot better, I'll just say that. A lot of units have less res than defense, and the key unit here, being Legendary Crom, is definitely one worth mentioning. So, before we get to the builds themselves, let me just explain why I said that Sylvain actually has a purpose. This right here doesn't have buff in attack and defense, and that's obviously because of low attack def. So you might be wondering, what the hell am I looking at? Why is this res plus? Why is this plus 2? Why is there 3 flowers? Huh? Okay, so the idea here, you need plus 2 to get attack up from a merge. Plus 1 is not enough. Plus res is just in case you don't get anything better in 3 copies, which is very rare to begin with. But yeah, so I'm just taking it from the point of view of someone who gets very unlucky. So, essentially here, right, you're basically looking at what I would do if you want to deal with Legendary Crom. Keep in mind, it is limiting to some extent, but this can one-shot a Life and Death Crom that is plus 10, as long as there's no flowers, I believe. If he has 5 Dragon Flowers, he will be able to tank, just barely with 1 HP. However, otherwise he will just die. This is just a testament of how disgustingly broken Legendary Crom is when you need TA and a weapon with 25 might and you still barely kill if, you know, there's no Dragon Flower. Also, res buffs. Res buffs would actually fuck you over. So, be careful. If you do bring this on the map, do not... like, just be careful. Just be careful that there is no res buff. If it's Legendary Azura, make sure that your speed is able to double and he doesn't have, like, low attack speed or something of the sort. If he has Life and Death, you'll just one-shot. But if he doesn't have Life and Death, then it becomes a... it becomes more about looking at his speed compared to yours. If you can't double him, he's fucked. That's just how it is. Because there is no way for Crom to one-shot Sylvain. Literally no way possible to one-shot Sylvain. He's just that bulky with TA. There's no way. He needs to double to kill. In which case, Suspero 3, Suspero 2. This shit is probably the most cancerous set. If it's life and death, you can just bait. If it's Swiss Sparrow, then you have to be the one initiating. So, you know, just be careful on that. Essentially, let me just get my notes, because I made sure. If he has life and death, you'll one-shot if there's no res buff, unless max merge, plus all 5 flowers. If you have an attack plus version, with an attack plus 3 seal, which is not exactly all that expensive now, is it? You one-shot regardless of flower or res buff. If he doesn't have life and death, you will typically double on player face and therefore kill. Be careful around Swiss Sparrow 3 and obviously Swiss Sparrow 2 and low attack speed. So, okay. What else? If you have attack plus and attack plus 3 seal, you will one-shot unless he has a res buff. And that's, you know, if he doesn't have life and death. So, you know, at that point, Swiss Sparrow 3 and Swiss Sparrow 2 can be fine. Again, be careful of a res buff, but if you have to deal with Swiss Sparrow 5 Crom, you may just be able to one-shot him anyway. Now, you might be wondering, okay, but why? The idea here is that you can bring a calf team with this. If Sylvain gets rid of the only unit with a low skill on the map, that being Crom, you are able to use your Blade Tome to clean up the rest. That is pretty huge. It basically gives you more freedom and allows you to actually bring your horse teams. This is especially important in higher tier arena. I'm talking from the point of view of someone that scores like over 760 at times. Actually, almost consistently now. In which case, you will deal with Legendary Crom, you will deal with Legendary Edelgard, you will deal with plenty of duo heroes. I believe, and you can check my VOD on my Twitch on that, my arena run was something like, at one point I had to deal with Legendary Ulm, Duo Ulm, I believe Duo Ephraim, and then like something else. And then the fight right after was 2 Legendary Ulm, a Duo Ulm, and then fucking Duo Ephraim. Like, you can't make this shit up. It's absolutely cancerous in those modes. But you want to know what makes this the worst part? The worst part is the fact that they have lows. Because the thing that was a lot easier to deal with when it was the armored meta, not having to deal with low skills basically meant Blade Tome, dead. But now typically every team has at least one unit with a low skill. Sylvain here basically can trivialize that unit with a low skill, so you can still Blade Tome the rest if you're like in the 750, 760 range, because typically not everyone has a low skill. And then you get the type of team I come across and you're just like, you just want to die, but that's a different story, right? So yeah, overall, this can actually enable you to use a team that basically allows you to keep your stronger player in AA for later stages. For basically free. Because this is just a 4-star focus, right? So it's a lot easier to get to +2. At least that's the way I look at it. And the flower, again, is the same situation. You'll get 1 point in HP, then speed, then attack. Unless you have an attack plus character. If you have an attack plus character, Sylvain can actually just have 2 flowers, I believe, and you'll be just fine. But yeah, just my 2 cents on this. This is why I ended up pulling for him, and this is why mine is +1. Mine was attack plus, luckily enough. And yeah, that's really just all. That's really just what it is. Even at +2 it works just fine. If you have him at +10 with like attack plus and like attack +3, if you do AA, get this set on him. For the love of God, get this set on him. He's going to be super useful on any water season. That's why you should bless him to water. To just deal with Legendary Crom. Because at that point, if you're +10, you have 3 more attack. That 3 attack makes the difference from being able to kill with or without res buffs, even without life and death, so you can then safely bait him for free. because he still does enough damage. He still does enough damage. He will do like a good chunk, like 20 to 30 HP. He still does enough damage to prioritize attacking you over like waiting for other teammate to move and then repoing them, okay? So obviously that's a huge plus. It makes him very easy to use as a result. Glimmer is just there also, just so in case you have to deal, you know, with multiple fights, this is still an option. His res is also really weird, because if you have to, say, deal with a 50 attack Legendary Azura, I believe it's more like around 48 that you should be expecting. 48 will go down to 30, right? That's still 5 damage. Yeah. Yeah, Azura will still prioritize attacking Sylvain over dancing. Which, bruh, that's kind of really good. Though at plus 10, this can be a bit iffy, obviously, because a res buff can come as a problem. But, you know. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else to say. This is just a really good, not exactly one-off, but you get what I mean. Legendary Chrom is absolutely ludicrous. Again, this is why I say, like, Chrom is really frustrating to deal with. People who are not really high in Arena do not understand how much of a threat Legendary Chrom is. He is literally the most annoying unit to come across, period. Legendary Olm looks like a peon in comparison. He just looks like a peasant. Oh wait, he is. Anyway, you get what I mean. It's just really annoying to deal with. There's very few very hard counter that are very consistent at it, which just makes me laugh when people are just like, yeah, Tia Nino just destroys him. She doesn't. She gets one-shotted. Because Legendary Chrom can hit 97 attack, or to be precise, 88 attack and then removes 9 of your defense. It's pretty yikes, honestly. So especially like, to give you an idea, the first week where he was introduced were very hard counter to him, were not as easy to get. Like, we didn't have our Rinkas, or forget the one that came after. Oh, Merrick. We didn't have Merrick, or TSA Merrick, I should say. We didn't have any of these units. It took me 4 hours to do my first AA run. It is that dangerous. But, yeah. Again, if you're doing AA, this is the set you should aim for. TA and Blade Home is just barely enough. So again, I think that should give you an idea of how disgusting this character can get. But, yeah. Moving on to his actual builds. So set on the left, pretty obvious. I don't think I have to explain that one. He gets basically 41-37 bulk-wise, and as far as offense is concerned, if you are not dealing with a LOL, of course, well, you're basically looking at 87 attack. Oh, actually, 91 attack with drive attack, 91 attack, and 49 speed. I should also point out, if you want a set that works 100%, that's slightly different than the one I just showed, low attack res is also a good option, because then res buffs are ignored. There's nothing you can do about it. He's just gonna die. But that is fairly expensive fodder, so, you know, I tried to not include it for a very obvious reason. I'll still mention it just in case you guys care. But yeah, so if you want to do the set on the right, because you really like him, or something similar, then yeah, you can do that. Also, I don't know why I went for an attack refine. I meant to put a res refine here, which would basically make him hit 41 def and 40 res, which is a lot better overall. And the enemy cannot even buff their attack, which is pretty helpful overall. But, yeah. Overall, I will say the set on the right is a bit better. Again, this is really just a showcase of how good Melon Float is if you want to do something that's more multi-phase. Fury 4, you know, the recoil of 8 damage you take, now it's suddenly 1. 1 damage. So, you know, that makes it very good. As long as, of course, you don't fight more than once per turn, which is a bit limiting at times, I do know that much. But yeah, overall... Oh, actually, no. I went for the attack refine because Melon Float already gives you, you know, the res, but I should have went for a def refine instead. Because with a def refine, you have 44 defense, sorry. 44 defense, Mirror Strike and Float basically puts you to 42 res. So you have 45-42. Pretty good bulk, right? Then the low also gets pushed in, and you have... wait, so it's 44, 42, actually. So 47, 45 bulk, which is really good. As far as speed is concerned, the speed is good enough as is. His attack will go from 59 to 64 to 68 to 71 to 75. So you have 75-49 offensively on top of that 47-45 defensively. Which is really good, especially considering a horse unit. Or cav unit, I should say. Which, you know, gives him a lot of option overall. I will say, obviously, as far as the plus 10 is concerned, he's not that amazing. But if you like Sylvain that much, hey, that's fine. I mean, at the end of the day, his art is actually really solid. I really hope Argon will, you know, voice, not voice, what? Argon will do the art of base Sylvain as well, because he's obviously, like, I could not think of a better fit, honestly. Argon in general has been doing a lot of really good art lately. And, man, I hope they keep using him. That sounds really wrong. I hope they keep employing him for art, because he really does a good job at it. But next up, Ingrid. Now, Ingrid is a bit of a bizarre case, as her weapon is literally just the weapon of the banner, but as a pref. I guess they realize, oh yeah, Lance Flyers are kind of shit, aren't they? Because they have to always to compete with Est or Katria, which, I mean, is sadly true, but this weapon basically, again, in proper translation aside, basically gives you 5 across the board and 10 HP healed every phase, essentially. Instead of just during 2 phases of the whole fight in that set. I've already explained this with Dorothea, I'm not going to explain it again. Essentially, it's a pretty solid weapon because her stat line is very well rounded. I just wish her speed was less high and her attack higher. Otherwise, she is a fairly solid unit. Honestly, she is pretty good. Guard bearing is a bit of a weird option, and I believe it's flyer locked. Personally, do I think it's really all that great? No, not really. Guard bearing, the main units that would really have loved to use it cannot use it. Only Lance, Axe, and Sword Flyers can. Oh joy! Armored Stride all over again. Though, then again, Guard Bearing to Barn is something I'm glad it cannot be made. For very obvious reasons. Don't think I have to explain those. But, yeah. Overall, it's a fairly decent skill. It's not on the same level as, say, Pegasus Flight, and I'm still waiting on Wyvern Flight to really see how well it's going to be. Because at the end of the day, like, Altena and I guess now Minerva are units that are really good, but don't really have a good B slot. Though, now with Resplendent Minerva, you can actually run Wyvern Flight. I've already kind of showcased my Minerva for it, but I'm waiting to have enough merges to really, truly showcase it. Resplendent Minerva actually was extremely helpful at making the unit amazing. Mine hit basically like 40 in all stats, and then the attack like 60 invisible stats. And then you had on top of that Pegasus Flight, of course, and yeah. Yeah. She is pretty disgusting as a result. There's another set I want to do on her, but can't yet. But that's, again, a different unit. I should not be talking about this. Instead, let's talk about comparison, eh? So. Sate. When it comes down to Ingrid and Tsubasa, the main thing to keep in mind is that Ingrid typically has more stats because she ends up getting 5 across the board, whereas Tsubasa only gets 6 attack and speed. However, Mirage Feather basically transforms her weapon more or less into a brave weapon. What do I mean by this? It basically gives her desperation without an HP threshold. So it basically becomes a brave weapon as long as you have the speed for it, which when you have 59 speed with just a speed buff and your weapon, and that's not considering anything in your A, B, C, or S skill slot, it's just really insane. Especially with Armored Killer effectiveness, there is a number of ways to actually make her one-shot Winter Sophis. The only type of things that, Est will do better overall than Tsubasa is dealing with, say, Legendary Edelgard, who blocks follow-ups. Because then, obviously, Tsubasa is in a weird spot where she cannot double and therefore needs to one-shot, and that's not going to happen with Edelgard. So Est, who has an actual brave weapon, will typically do better there. But yeah, as far as the two are concerned, keep in mind, White Wing Spear 1 Refine gives her 3 across the board, Est that is. So she has a lot of option as a result. Ingrid is a bit better as far as that is concerned because she has a speed stat. Her def is higher as well. Her attack is higher. The only thing to really keep in mind here that actually is a huge point for Est being better is the fact that she can use Pegasus Flight. Especially once she gets a Resplendent, because that looks like shit, let's be honest. So she's most likely going to get a Resplendent at one point, even though I'm still just waiting for Lachesis, who has art that just doesn't make sense for the character whatsoever. One day, maybe. One day. And hopefully they don't take Kawasumi, but rather Rika Suzuki. But I'm getting off track here. Overall, S is able to use Pegasus Flight really well. Tsubasa is also able to use Pegasus Flight very well. Because if you say Fury 4 on these two, they're meant to be player phase unit after all, so it's not so bad. So if you have that, plus a buff on Tsubasa, you have 44 res. Very easy to work with Pegasus Flight as a result. And what I mean by the way, by the fact that they are player phase, so, it works really well, is that Ingrid, by definition, is a better user of this encounter than those two. Est needs to initiate for the Brave effect. Tsubasa needs to initiate for the Desperation effect. So obviously, it's just a lot better for her to... It's just a lot better for them to focus on being just offensive. Whereas, obviously, you'd rather focus on being, multi-phase with Ingrid. Especially since that doubles the amount of healing Starpoint Lens can provide. So, yeah. So, as far as an offensive unit is concerned, I do think Ingrid is overall worse than Tsubasa and Est. They also have Armor Killer, which kind of deals with the main weakness that Ingrid will have. Has a lot of the main green units are armored. That's kind of just how it is. Legendary Hector is armored. Legendary Edelgard is armored. Surtur is armored. Like, there's a lot. Most armored units that have a purpose are armored. Winter Sophis as well. So she doesn't really have a shot against those. Not in a million year. But she can do well with blue and red, which honestly is the main issue she has, in my opinion. And she can do it well with AoEs, of course, but that's kind of a problem for like 99% of the cast. So, you know. Overall, I do think she is a fairly solid unit, though, because again, what she cannot do in player phase, she makes up for it in multi-phasing. And again, very good at that. So, let's talk about set, hey? So, Fury 4. You kind of need that for Pegasus Flight. This is mostly a player phase set, with a tinge of enemy phase if you don't have to deal with ranged unit. It's a bit iffy overall. Do keep in mind that Starpoint Lens fights off what Fury's damage does, so you still heal by 2. Because it heals for more than the non-pref version of this. And yeah, you essentially hit 70 attack with this. Attack rest 2. Now you might be like, wouldn't you prefer like, I don't know, attack rest bond? Yes and no. Because attack rest 2 feels underpowered right here, until you realize that if it's useful, again, because of Pegasus Flight, which it typically will, you're basically not getting 2 attack, 2 res, you're getting 3 attack, 3 res, and 1 def. So hey, that's pretty useful, right? That said, I do think solo attack res solo might be better in some cases. Still, in my opinion, I do think attack res 2 is overall better. That's just me. But that's just because it's better for multi-phasing. In a lot of cases, it's really hard to multi-phase consistently like that, except with, say, solo. Like, for a bond, it's mostly player phase, enemy phase. Solos are mostly player phase, because, again, buffs and such might force you to be too close to the unit for the effect to come off, and again, Pegasus Flight needs it. But yeah, as far as stats are concerned here, you are basically looking at 75 attack and 64 speed. Why? I have so many problems when I keep seeing this. It's like, she has so much speed. They decided to give her 42 speed, and then they're like, weapon should give 5 speed. Also, you know, super boon and speed, and it's just, stop. You don't need 70 speed on every fucking unit. God damn. Like, her and Rhea, I call the duo unit Rhea more than Byleth because literally the introduction quote is Rhea speaking with Byleth as the name over on top of it, which is just like, ah yes, Byleth saying I am Rhea, sure, that makes sense. And most of the quotes are more Rhea than Byleth in my opinion, but that's just me. And again, that might be, you know, because Byleth doesn't have a character. Anyway, there's just a lot of speed. I mean, 42 speed, like, even if you have neutral, with a buff you're at 53 because of the weapon. Oh wait, no, 56, because the weapon also gives speed plus 3, because that was required. Oh my god, my head. Basically, unmerged, unbuffed, you have 50 speed. Why? What's the point of this? It's funny too, because Rhea actually has cooldown -1 in her weapon. Why not do the same with Starpoint Lens? That would have made her actually really solid. And would also have dealt with one of the biggest problem Ingrid has. When it comes down to special, she is in a very awkward spot. Like, for example, you see the set on the right? Yeah, imagine if that was cooldown -1, you could run Bonfire. Get hit proc instantly. Yeah. So guaranteed follow-up would not be as dangerous, is basically the idea. But yeah. Anyway, set on the left, if you're dealing with anyone with 28 res or less, you're basically looking at 7 more attack and def and res. So essentially you'd go from 75-64 to 82-64. Obviously, this is going to be rare. Our res is not that great, so obviously, again, not common. As far as def and res are concerned, you're looking at 48, 47, and again, Pegasus Fly can push that up to 55, 54. Again, though, inconsistent. But it's still consistent enough to typically give you some stats, and that makes it fairly solid overall. Better than guard bearing or however beast or base B slot is, at least in my opinion. But yeah, set on the right is a very similar set to the left. The idea is just to have access to distinct counters, so you can just, you know, have player and enemy phase. Do keep in mind it is kind of awkward to work with, and you need Rest Plus to actually make Pegasus Flight work. Otherwise, you might be better having something like Mystic Boost if you want to actually have like a ton of sustain. It's just kind of awkward overall because the weapon already gives you sustain, so sometimes Mystic Boost might be just extremely wasteful to have. But yeah, that's kind of just how it is, isn't it? But yeah, overall, this is pretty solid. Joint Drive Attack basically pushes the attack to 69, nice, and 60 speed. Which again, the attack is a bit low, but the idea is to combo this into Brave Lucina, set on the left also to some extent if you have to use a enemy phase. So you get hit back Proc Ignis to make up for your low attack, and as a result you still have 40 defense, 44 res, and sustain to work with it. Pegasus Flight also can push that bulk a bit higher. As for the other set, this is a Gale Force set. What a shock, right? The fact that start point lens here is kind of in this awkward position where it doesn't have cooldown -1. It requires you to actually get hit. Therefore, Mystic Boost is there just so you can actually like heal. The idea is just you can just poke and get out, right? And at the end of the day, you get back 16 HP. So, if you're looking at this from the point of view of 45 def, 36 res, you won't take that much damage. In fact, you might not take any. And then you can back off, or potentially kill something else if needed. It's just a Gale Force set. I don't think I have to explain that too much. With this, you will hit 74 attack, 78 attack with Joint Drive Attack. This can be a bit iffy though, because you know sometimes you might have to go all the way in, which can make it slightly awkward. Still, overall, you will have 74 attack, and 78 attack is, or 74, yeah, 74 attack for the heavy blade check. So Gale Force should be definitely pretty consistent. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about Ingrid. Now let's talk about Rhea. Boy, oh boy. Minus the weird-ass swimsuit that nobody would, well, maybe some people would wear, but I don't expect Rhea to wear. Overall, this unit is, how can I put this? If it wasn't for the cooldown -1 in the weapon, she would be irrelevant. I'll just say that. This weapon actually does wonder for her, and gives her so much synergy. Overall, having more speed and or if the foe has equal HP, that's a pretty good condition to have. Larcey is a great example of why that works. And you get 5 attack and speed on initiation, obviously. Actually, no, it's not an initiation. It's basically regardless. You get 5 attack and speed, so it's multi-phase, but might as well be on initiation. Because if you get hit, Byleth dies. Period. There's just no bulk here. And it also destroys anything that blocks follow-up. So basically the idea here is a lot of green units are armored units with Warrior Fighter, like for example Surtur. Surtur dies to this very, very hard. There's just nothing he can do with it. Unless you somehow have a sorter with 70 speed, which I genuinely would be extremely interested to see, because what the hell is that? But, you know, otherwise, and, you know, less than full HP, which, again, very difficult condition to not fulfill. Or at least either fulfill one or the other. But yeah, this is really good for anything that has Wary Fighter or Legendary Edelgard. She's a good counter against that. To some extent, and I did not do many calculation on this. I don't think she's very consistent at it, but I think she can also deal with Legendary Crumb. If you hurt him enough, like as in like maybe do 30-40% HP, she should be able to do the rest purely because of a duo skill. I'll get more to that later. Shills are still irrelevant. They were kind of awkward before, now there's just better ways to debuff at this point. Why would you waste your B slot on this is beyond me. The only time you're using a chill is typically because the weapon has it. I'm looking at Soren, Lilina, stuff like this. If you're taking a B slot for this, my condolence. Unless you're a flyer, but even then with flyers, I mean, you still have access to Mystic Boost, you know? Which is something that Byleth can definitely run. Or Desperation. There's a lot of options you can have. Really, overall, it's a very iffy beast. Chills are pretty irrelevant. Ground Order is always nice. Attack Speed Push 4 is really good. Can be also really good on healers, because they can actually use that in tandem with Brazens. But yeah, overall it's a fairly solid set, but the reason why Byleth is so high is this. So, this skill right here grants Desperation to unit and allies within 2 space at start of every third turn. So, quick disclaimer, I did not cover this with Paula, but I'll cover this here. When they mean a third turn, turn 1 counts as turn 3 basically for this. So the skill resets on turn 4, 7, 10, and so on and so forth. Not 3, 6, 9 as you would think. At least that's what I thought. But yeah, it kind of tripped me up a little. So you know, there's that. Just wanted to point this out just in case. Desperation here is really good. Very similar reason as to what makes Sylvain very good. It can enable a flyer team to just completely, I do mean completely, ignore the threat that is Legendary Crumb. If you have a green mage flyer with enough speed to double, like say Scattered Fang Nino, you can actually use this duo skill to give her Desperation, and all of a sudden you double Crumb, you kill him, even with a flyer team. This can be very good, but also fairly scary, because at the end of the day, unlike Sylvain, you cannot tank with anything that's flying. Period. So obviously, you know, it's a good option to have if you don't mind the little bit of danger. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty good option to have. I do think this alone is really solid, and it actually helps her a lot also because her bulk is just trash. So if you run Desperation as her B skill, and you just are not quite at the HP threshold yet, and you get one-shotted, you can just use the duo skill. That's just fine. And it refreshes itself, so, you know, if you need it for other fights, that's fine. Just use it. Just back out until you can use it. Sometimes you can do that, so, you know, that's definitely an option you can have. Other than that, well, let's move on to comparison. Red Mage Flyers, eh? Now you might be looking at me and just like, Jay, what the hell is this? Why? Why are we comparing Ishtar to Byleth? The answer is simple. You want to know who has the best offensive stat line of any single red mage flyer outside of Byleth? It's Ishtar. I wish I was making that up. She has the best stat line at 34-36. Byleth has 36-42. Yeah, I think I kind of made my point already. Byleth has basically no comparison. If you want to use a Blade Tome over a Sun Precursor, or Percursor, that is very much something you can do. There is no problem in doing so, and she is the best user of that, because she also has a Desperation Duo skill, which means she has option for other things in her B slot. So, you know, overall, like for example a Chill, or something like that, there's really not much option for flyers right now. I hope this changes at one point, but only time will tell. Their defenses are basically the same. She has more HP, however. And as far as offense is concerned, obviously, if you want to really compare the two together, had an extra 6 attack to Ishtar, that's the difference. And yeah, she's still behind. So even with Blade Tome, Ishtar is behind. The only thing that she really has is access to Dense, and that's it. And if I'm comparing her to literally any other red mages, it's still the same thing. She just has better stat all around, basically. The only unit that can potentially get better stats overall is Camilla. Drift Camilla, who has 37 base attack, and I believe her weapon also buffs her attack. Which, you know, as a result, you have a ton. I do mean a ton of attack by comparison. So yeah, overall, Byleth just doesn't really have anything to be compared to. Moving on to the builds. So, alright, set on the left is using Wind Sweep to your advantage. For those who don't know this, which, I mean, at this point I feel like it's mostly common knowledge, but I'm just going to repeat myself to make sure that I cover all my bases. Wind Sweep, the way it interacts with anything that gives you no follow-up, is just you have no drawback. Period. That's just how it is. Or if you get an... so essentially, if your weapon has a no follow-up, Wind Sweep basically will block your enemy from attacking if you have more speed than them. But it won't stop you from doubling, because it gets rid of that drawback. Okay? So that's pretty huge, right? But you know what else is pretty huge about this? Well... or rather, actually, the other thing that can actually work instead of no follow-up is if you have a guaranteed follow-up. Like, for example... base Edelgard or base Dimitri, I believe I covered this in the video I covered them in, but essentially their weapon gives you a follow-up. If you have Wind Sweep and you fulfill the condition, you will be able to still double as long as you have 5 more speed than them. So it basically becomes a no follow-up situation. But yeah, the best part about this is basically you still can double. And because of cooldown -1, you can actually run Draconic Aura instead of Ruptured Sky, which is more consistent. And yeah, how much attack do you have here? 63, 68 because of the weapon, 72 because Joint Drive Attack, and 78 because Death Blow, right? So you hit, you proc. Because of Heavy Blade, as long as they have 77 or less attack, which very difficult condition to fulfill, I know. But to also add Insult to Injury, you get 5 more damage from Heavy Blade. 78 attack translates to 23 damage from Draconic Aura. So you have 83 attack on both hits, and then you get a proc of an extra 23 damage, which is just huge. So, yeah. Overall, it basically just allows you to destroy whatever is in front of you. As for the set on the right, it's basically very much the same, but this time actually like trying to be bulkier and using Mystic Boost instead. Though instead of Draconic Aura here, I should have put Dragon Fang, because at that point you get 2 charge, get hit, and then proc Dragon Fang, right? So this is the only thing that makes this set slightly better if you want more damage. However, like I said, the Windsweep set does pretty well already. I do think the set on the left is overall better. I just also wanted to show the other option, because obviously it's an option, right? Now for build 2. So this one is fairly obvious. Again though, Ruptured Sky. If you want to use it, it's fine. Draconic Aura is also fine. The reason why I use Ruptured Sky here is because, again, you have a dual skill that gives you Desperation. So, if you need to heal yourself up, this is an option. You can actually heal yourself up by using the dual skill and then attacking. So Mystic Boost will just heal you, and you'll take no damage. But yeah, with this you hit 36 def and 35 res, as well as 10, 15, 19, 82 attack. So 82 attack, 57 speed. So you just hit, get hit, proc if you want Draconic Aura. This is also an option. However, like I said, if you want to use Desperation, Draconic Aura will not be consistent. So Ruptured Sky might be a better pick at that point. Really up to you though. Overall, it's still pretty solid. So yeah. Pretty one note, but really what it comes down to is the duo skill is really good, and while she's very one note in what she does it really well. Another build I did not mention is Blade Tomes. Wow, Fury Desperation. I'm sure you could not have come up with that yourself. The only reason I showcased that one for Sylvain is just really the fact that I had 2 sets total to showcase. But yeah, this is also something you can do with Byleth and Rhea. It's really the only thing though, but personally I do think her weapon is good enough as is. So, yeah. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. I hope I kind of got my point through well enough with Sylvain, because, yeah. And, I mean, I do think I kind of... It's really hard to really explain how useful it is unless someone is also in that high an AA tier. I'm always in the top 1k in AA. Always. I've never dropped outside of the top 1k for like months at this point. I think like maybe I think definitely at the start of AA I wasn't, but ever since I started being in the 1k, I've always been in the 1k. So I'm definitely like in the top 1% here. But if you ever aspire to do like arena, like really hard, this is something you cannot be wrong in getting. And if you're and if you're wondering, Selena, how about Selena at it? I also pulled a Selena purely for that. But the problem with Selena is that if you have flowers on her, right? If you have flowers on her, she will be able to typically always take a hit unless you get HP or Death minus, which makes her overall fairly more annoying to build. However, she does provide also support with the weapon that she has, and the -6 res that it inflicts is just a flat 6 damage increase, which is really nice. And the weapon itself is 17 might, so you end up with 23 might on your weapon. Blade Tome is 25. So, as long as you can take a hit, and you have Quicken Pulse, you'll one-shot unbaiting as far as Legendary Crumb is concerned, which is a huge plus. A huge plus. Unfortunately, mine is HP plus, or Def plus HP minus, or HP plus Def minus. Actually, I believe you need HP plus or Def plus to be consistent at tanking him. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but that's kind of how it is. I wanted to get a second copy, did not manage to, but that's kind of just how it is, yeah? But yeah, hopefully this video was informing to some. I know it's over an hour long, which just reinforced my point that Refined Tier List update should not come out today. But yeah, again, hopefully this was informative enough. And I'll see you guys tomorrow with the Refined Tier List update. Or on Discord, because I'll probably be working on the Tempestrado/GHB tier list update today. But yeah, I'll see you all whenever then. Have a great rest of the day, everyone. See ya.